So let's talk about business ethics. Especially business ethics are getting more, receiving a lot of attention from many like mass media and public. So before we talk about that business ethics, and before we're talking about that, we just try to discuss how the public actually regard that business ethics. It was like a concern of the companies before, but nowadays even like lots of publics pay closer attention to a lot of ethical things of the business, and also we try to define what is business ethics, because also the definitions here is very broad. So we try to define it, and also why it is very difficult to make the ethical judgment all the time in the workplace. So we are going to talk about that one. And also the business ethics are kind of not really the it contains a lot of behaviors of many companies. Actually, the ethical behaviors required not only between company to company, but also in the workplace between employees and employers and employees. And so when you actually deal with the business ethics, you have to have some fundamental position, what I call approach here. So a lot of approaches actually are used in academic field, among which we are going to talk about what is conventional approach in business ethics. So today we are pretty much talking about the basic conceptual issues in business ethics, and then we are going to talk about how it is actually different across many different countries, hopefully next week, this Friday. So as we see, the concern of the business ethics getting bigger and larger, especially by publics. I mean, if you see the newspaper this day, what are the the number one news in Korean mass media?
North Korea.
What? North Korea. And other thing is Oxy case. What is that? What's the name of the product? 가습기, right? 가습기. They called it a sterilizer of the used in humidifier. So actually, people get killed by this sterilizer, which was used in a humidifier. So the Oxy product actually creates a lot of controversy in Korea. So which is also very related to the business ethics that we are going to talk about today. And again, as you see here, the public interest in business ethics are really heightened. Why? Why people start to looking at these kind of ethical issues, ethical behavior of the companies. So we have to figure out that one. Certainly the Enron crisis, which was actually started in year 2000, maybe the story of the, open up the public concern of the company's ethical behavior. So we know what Enron crisis, which was done, what I call Enron scandal, which was made at year 2000, beginning of year 2000. So starting Enron, a lot of companies actually commit very similar, what I call ethical crime. So these are the example. Not only the Enron, a lot of other companies also committed very different kinds of ethical scandals. Enron, as you see here, Dynergy, Health Boeing, Martha Stewart, Tyco, Adelphi. I mean, if you look at what kind of crime, like ethical scandal these firms committed, I think we can find a very common a marked practice by these firms. As you see, the Enron created like a security fraud, right? They also they had a very kind of a corrupted corporate culture in the companies, and they systematically made a wrong, accounting report, but nobody tell what's going on inside of the companies. So that's where the company actually charged as a unethical behavior. WorldCom as well. IT companies in US are also one of the companies that made a huge scandal in beginning of year 2000. Also, this company made a wrong accounting report to the shareholders, and they even lie about it. So, which is also ethical scandal. Making a filing a false financial statement, also the WorldCom actually did. So if you see a lot of ethical scandals of these firms, we can find that these firms all produced a financial scandal, right? They made a wrong accounting report to the shareholders, and even the company didn't have a right corporate culture, governance system to monitor, check, control that wrong behaviors. So you may think that the ethical behavior is something related to your, say, company's wrong behavior in, say, financial reporting, accounting, and so on. So you may think that unethical behavior may be related to, say, money things, something money involved part. Company tried to make a kind of a scandals to the public, but that's not true. Yeah, it is only, we can say that that kind of a financial scandal is only part of unethical business behavior in the global business. Unethical things, behaviors actually happen a lot everywhere in the workplace. Internal organization or inter-organization and everywhere. So you can see lots of examples of unethical behaviors. First, you can see that unethical issues between employees and employers. So say all of us here are the employees of, say, big organization, and you guys may do the unethical things to your boss, simply say, right? That is also unethical behavior. We can call this also a scandal. So what are the examples? So let's say that you are the employees. So what kind of thing that you commit to your boss, to your organization unethically? Just tell me some example, right? Kind of a very common practice, like unethical behavior between employee and employers. Employers are theft. So employees theft company's property. So that is very common malpractice, like suppliers of the companies, or so the telephone sometimes. You should not touch any property of the companies, like photocopying your, say, personal papers in the company. That is also, we can say that unethical things. Just check. I mean, a lot of people in the company actually doing this kind of jobs. You just bring the property of the company things back to your home, use that one in your home and for other purposes. That's not also unethical things. What about then your employers, your boss, or your company may do the wrong things to yourself? That is also kind of unethical behavior. What are the examples? What mostly the employers actually do? This is pretty much very common practice in Korea. So wrong behavior of the employers to employees, like discrimination in the workplace, um, like invasion of privacy, very very common, happening very common in Korean workplace, place, I think, or like unsafe or unhealthy working condition if the company offered to the employees. That is also very unethical behaviors for a firm to do to their employees. So as you see here, a lot of unethical issues you may be thinking about. So it is not really the issues between company versus to other company versus to the society. Company also do a lot of wrong things to their customers, right? So as you see here, what are the very common practice of the company's wrongdoing to the customers are they provided unfair pricing policy or unfair price to the customers. A lot of collusion you can actually see, like especially we saw news a few years ago, like a lot of in Korea, like lots of noodle makers in Korea actually collude each other and set the price of noodle ramen at a certain price, and selling the product at that fixed price for a couple of years, which is not really fair. So collusion, business collusion, is also not really a fair things and not really ethical things to do. And deceiving something to customers by providing wrong marketing messages, also by using wrong exaggerated advertisement. That is also the company's wrong ethical behaviors to the unethical behavior to the customers. So the point is that you should not limit what's the unethical things of the company must do to publics. So it happens everywhere, between employees, employers, between company to company, company to customers, company to shareholders. Actually, the case here are mostly the unethical things that company did to their shareholders, right? Which is the most, especially the serious criminal in business ethics. You know, of course, the company should not do the wrongdoing for the community. So as I told you at the beginning, the public start to pay a lot more attention to the company's ethical behaviors. So, so these are, as you see here, what are the key concern of the public regarding the company's ethical behaviors? According to the survey of the public opinion, they believe that the most serious violators of business ethics are the CEO, as you see here, corrupted CEOs and executives who try to protect themselves for their own benefit and worth. Maybe the key entity of the committing business unethical business ethics, according to the survey by the public very recently, and why they, especially the top executives, actually doing the wrong things, certainly for money and to maintain their power. And for the benefit of money and power, we saw that a lot of executives weakening their sense of personal values simply for the sake of the money and power. So we see a lot of this kind of case from the mass media. But on the other hand, the good news is that we getting more and more saw like examples of the executives and CEOs who are doing good both in ethical unethical behavior, at the same time, they are very successful for their business. So I think that a few decades ago, people may thought that doing ethical things, doing things right, may deteriorate your business sometimes. However, we see a lot more cases that executives, good executives, are also very doing lots of good ethical things for their business, with their business. But unfortunately, on the other hand, that a lot of mass media and the press cover the story of the unethical behavior of the firms. However, that never improve the company's ethical behavior. So, which means that even though the coverage of that wrongdoing of the firms are getting more widespread, well known to many public, however, that never cure the problem of the company's wrongdoing. So, which is quite bad news to us. So these are some of the very key agenda this day regarding the business ethics. We see a lot of, say, a survey about asking about the, what's your opinions about the company's behavior, their ethical behavior, and so on. So, not only to people outside in the public, but also this kind of questions asked a lot inside people of the organizations. Even people inside the organization believe that they encounter a lot of ethically wrongdoings within the companies or within even their job. As you see here, 3 out of 4 employees reported like that kind of a bad experience of or witnessing unethical behavior happen in the workplace. And even the worst part is more than 1 in 3 respondents said that this kind of wrongdoings and incidents are happening at least once a week. So which means that unethical behavior, patterns of that kind of repeated patterns of unethical behaviors actually happen quite a lot this day. So LRN means the Laboratory Response Network. So kind of a system that's surveying, asking the opinions of any organization. So this is LRN indicating kind of a software. So by using the software, the organization can collect the ideas of the opinion, lots of opinions from many different public and so on. So the point is that people start looking at this ethical things quite very unethical things quite very common in very many workplaces. So that's why these are the example of, say, USA broadcasting program like TV media and TV show that displaying kind of a company's wrongdoing, reporting company's ethics. These are the programs in USA, but also in Korea, we see a lot of Korean programs dealing with companies' ethical behaviors. So which means that a lot of Korean TV programs actually covering the same exactly the issues this day more and more about how companies are doing wrong this day. So I just saw the newspaper very recently, and these are some of the Korean companies that, as you see here, make people angry about their behaviors. So they say that these are the Korean companies, but like Oxy here is not really a Korean company. This the problem company here is Korean units. The headquarters of these firms are located in UK, but I just consider them as kind of Korean firms because their reaction, behavior to the, say, casualty of their products quite wrong. So without the mass media reports about these firms' behavior to public or to even their employees, probably we couldn't notice what they have done to people inside and outside the organization. Let's talk about, can you follow what's going on in Oxy case this day in Korea? What's the problem? Anyone can summarize? Yeah.
That company, Oxy, isn't, they admitted it, but they're not willing to pay for it.
Yeah. So they admit, right? They acknowledge their wrongdoings, but it was too late, right? So I mean, the companies are anyway like organizations run by humans. So yeah, just as we make mistake, the company make a mistake anyway. So what we say ethical behavior of the firms, we are not only saying that the company should not make any mistake or wrongdoing to the public or customers, but also they have to manage what they have done well. If they did wrong on something, they have to manage it, right, in the right way. So that is also ethical behavior. So like Oxy case here, the story was that like more than, I just knew that, do you know how many people actually killed by this Oxy product, this sterilizer? According to the news, they claim that more than, do you know that? How many? Yeah, more than 100. Right? A lot of people actually killed by using the Oxy products. Killed more than 100 the customers means like it is like slaughter the people, the customers. A lot of people actually killed since year 2002. So which means that the company should take the responsibility. And even worse than that was that actually the Oxy Korea is actually say Korean branch. The say headquarters of that product is Rocket Lancashire, which is located in Slough, UK. They started selling the product in year 2001, and it was only until in year 2011 the Korean government started to investigate the case. Like 10 years later, after the company started selling the product, Korean government started to make an official investigation. And after killing 100 people, now the company only admit that they are sorry, they apologize publicly by adding, also promising to add 5 billion, like 50억, right? 5 billion Korean won to the compensation fund to the people, the customers who killed by that the product. So the problem was not the product itself, but also how the company acted upon what actually happened. So people criticize that their say official and public apology was not only belated but also kind of very insufficient to free the UK and Korean company from the company's obligation to find out who is responsible for that supplying that deadly product to chemicals, basically. Also, not only the company, the government also not really free from the responsible for selling that the sterilizer in the humidifier. Again, the point was that somebody already know what's the harmful part of that product, but it's been quite like 10 years later, finally something is going on to manage that crisis. And also the company made the apology after 10 years after they selling the product and after killing 100 customers. So kind of the Oxy Korea and the Racket Bankisher also quite manage a poor, say, response to the outcried Korean customers. I saw the news. I mean, I was USA last week. When I saw the CNN, the Oxy case was all of the news. I mean, I thought that the news was quite big one in Korea because it actually the Korean customers actually killed by that product, but it is pretty much global issues. So the CNN actually treat that crisis almost equal to the say North Korean news. So which means that public concern of the ethical behaviors are now pretty much very commonplace everywhere. It is whatever happened, it is now #1 news everywhere. So these are pretty much like the news in Korea, but also like kind of a global news. But what about the other 3 companies' case? Also kind of a Korean company that, as you see here, made a public outcry, upset a lot about what they have done. What about Mr. Pizza? Do you know what the company did? What's the problem? What kind of unethical behavior they did, the company did? I think that the chairman actually, I just tried to do the case study of the chairman of the Mr. Pizza a few years ago. He's really brilliant man. He's really great, successful businessman, entrepreneurs. He know how to do the business because like doing pizza business are pretty much pizza is already very mature market, a lot of global players. So to be a successful in pizza market is quite challenging and tough. But the owner, the founder, and the executive manager, he really made that success even in that mature and say red ocean market. So very brilliant businessman. So I admire him a lot. But his behavior to his employees deserve lots of criticism. So a lot of boycotts of the pizza. I don't know how many of you actually enjoy the Mr. Pizza. Is it really tasteful? Yeah? Honestly, I never had this one. So, but anyway, what he did was that he made assert to his employee, the owner, the founder, the manager of the Mr. Pizza actually asserted, say, doorman. Why? Because the doorman locked the door of the building, even though he was inside the building. So, can you believe this? It's just kind of a stupid case, but that's how the story goes. Because of that very stupid behavior, the legendary story of the Mr. Pizza actually destroyed because people start to boycott the product. So The problem was that the founder made a kind of a private apology to the doorman. So the doorman probably accepted the apology, but the public wasn't standing still, right? The public upset more. So that's why after the CEO, top manager made a private apology, he had to make a public apology again, right? So. However, because even though he had made the public apology, the response of the public was very cold, right? Because the public say that the Mr. Pizza became a rich company by using the money of the public, ordinary people. But the people say that the company treat the ordinary people under their feet, right? So that's, I think, the wrong things. So let's stop eating the Mr. Pizza product. So that's actually the story goes. So I know that a lot of you guys may be the CEO, but of course, good managing the company is good things on one hand, but also ethical behavior to your employees, companies, and any stakeholders are critical because it is actually impacting your firms. What about another very stupid story here? Mongo Foods is one of the leading Korean food makers. The owner here also made the same kind of a mistake, right? Not really mistake, but what the owner and the founder of that Mongo Food did to the employees also were serious on the fire by the public, right? Because what surprised to the owner, the public, was that the founder of this company was kind of an honorary man, right? The symbol of entrepreneurship and overcoming challenges and so on. But this case reminded people of kind of a not rage of Korean Air. Basically, the owner of this company, the founder of this company, did was that he just simply abused regularly his drivers a lot, right? That upset the public, right? And the funny thing was that what he did to the driver actually recorded by the drivers and became public. So that makes widespread outcry of the publics. And same case like Darim Industrial also the vice chairman of this company, so also kind of a family group of this company, also abused his power over his, say, personal drivers. I don't know why a lot of owners actually abusing his drivers. What's the problem of the drivers? So that is the question. So Korea is like hell of all drivers, right? So the point here is be good to your drivers, okay? That's joking. So the point here is be good to your employees. So I think unlike the case in other countries, which who made a lot of crimes in, say, to the stakeholders, as we see here, a lot of cases in Korea is kind of cases that the company made wrongdoing to the employees. So we should not do that. As you see here, the mass media, the media is actually watching every move, action of the companies 24 hours. So what you do wrong will become public. So very similar graph that we already seen. What's the social problems? Simply because the expectation of people in the society getting more and more, but actually what society can do is actually not really covering, satisfying that enlarged expectation of the society. So likewise, business ethics problem actually seriously becoming more serious and serious because expectation of society is getting large upon your business behavior. So that's why, compared to a few decades ago, uh, social expectation on business ethics are getting wider. As you see then, what's the business ethics? That's the questions. We know what ethics means. As you see here, all of us here have our own ethics. So ethics means that the kind of things that you use to judge right or wrong, right? Good or bad. So when you judge between good or bad, you certainly have your own disciplines, your own philosophy and values. So that's what I call ethics. Likewise, business ethics are the kind of companies' kind of a judgment on right or wrong behaviors, right? Upon the company's practice in their business places. It appears that a lot of companies know what's right or wrong because we are all well educated. We have learned quite enough for that good or bad things and right or wrong behavior. But in fact, we see a lot of cases that companies cannot make the right judgment on that good or bad, right or wrong. Because, like this one. Because sometimes we don't have any ideas of what is good or right behavior of your business. Simply not having that ideas of right or wrong business behavior leading the company into the unethical behaviors. And some other companies intentionally trying not to do any ethical behaviors for the benefit of the firms and power. So, ethical companies are company that has, however, on the other hand, kind of set their very strong standard of the firm's behavior, and also they have their own professional standard of conduct and follow that, try to be comforted with that strong standard and professional conduct. If the company has that kind of management, then you can say that the firm is ethical companies. So we see a lot of, say, as I mentioned earlier, like ethics are very common sense things, issues to many people. So, however, the company commit a lot of wrongdoing. So people or scholars, researchers believe that by training, educating with what is ethical business, what is moral business more to the companies, then they may correct the company's behavior. So that's why business ethics are pretty much very common and popular course this day in many business curriculum. Researchers simply believe that companies are doing wrong things, simply they don't know what's wrong or right things to do. So by training them, by educating them more about ethical things, the researchers and practitioners believe that the company will be better off by doing lots of ethical behaviors. So in educating these companies, there may be a lot of, say, educational approach to the companies' say, behaviors. We introduce here like descriptive ethics and normative ethics, kind of a curriculum that you actually receive as a business ethics course. Some believe that try to explain what is going on in the real world. So by studying what's going on in the real world, the real managers can realize this or that, this one is right or that is wrong, and so on. So by looking at the real case a lot, the manager can be much more knowledgeable between what is right or wrong things. So that is kind of a one approach in delivering the business ethics education, what I call a descriptive ethics. On the other hand, there is also a normative ethics, just like rather than explaining what's going on in the real world, some practitioners and business scholars try to teach or tell this one is what you should do, this one is what you shouldn't do, and so on. So by simply telling the discipline rules like guideline, the company may follow that one so that the company knows what's ethical, what's good, what's bad, what's not bad, what's good or bad, right or wrong, judgment for the company's business. So there are two types of approach in educating companies with business ethics, descriptive one and normative one. But in lots of business cases, business courses, business classes, normally the educator try to take a normative approach in delivering business ethics. Simply focusing on what you should do, what you should not do for your business. Simply, that's not because normative approach is superior, but because it's more convenient and efficient, effective in delivering the ideas of business ethics. Okay, let's have a break, and then we talk about then why companies behave illegally, and then what are the consequences of that illegal behavior of the firms and so on. So the point is that how we can teach or we can be educated about what is ethical behavior. If you really be an executive someday in the future, certainly I'm pretty sure that you'll be very confused about what is right things to do, what is wrong things to do, what is good or bad things to do. So a lot of confusion in the real practice, in the real business actually, you will have. So that's why we need to be educated regarding the moral, what is morality in business field, and what is like the good things to do, what is right moral systems for your business to do, and so on. So like conventional approach is simply like if you get confused about that one, simply what recommendation on this from this approach is that you just try to find out what are the prevailing norms of the acceptance in your society, right? So what are the prevailing norms of the acceptance in your society, and how that prevailing norms are in line with your business decision makings. or the real business practice. So conventional approach is simply using your business practice and compare it with the prevailing norm in your society. So that's pretty simple. A lot of other recommendation here, like the principle approach, ethical test approach, kind of how you know that your business practice and your business wisdoms are the right ones. If you are don't know pretty much about it, the conventional one you just compare to your real life with your society, or just following the principle in ethics, or try to keep questioning yourself about to find out what is the guiding ethical decision making to your firm's behavior. So many approaches here, but just try to follow the conventional approaches. Like Korea, for instance, we have a very strong, say, norms and kind of things, kind of a value that is considered as a social acceptance. So if your decision makings are not totally go against with that one, probably your behavior in the company may not that much wrong. So the point here is that ethical norms are widely different. Like in Korea, probably we may have some ethical norms, but in other countries they may have their own also unique ethical norms, because these are the sources of the ethical norms, composition of the ethical norms, or founding structure of the ethical norms. Because these are all different, so that's why we have all different ethical norms. Like, if you see the newspaper like yesterday or today, we see that the government now a new law, right? So when government officials say serve other people or receiving service from other, say, organization, that should not be over 3만 원. Right? If the government officials say donation for not really donation, but for giving the prize to say wedding, for instance, or funerals, that money should not over the 10만 원, for instance. So that is now fixed as kind of a Korean ethical norms. But like in China, for instance, like giving money, or not really the bribe, but like giving money for the convenience of your business to the business partners are pretty much common. Not really money, but like the present or some kind of compensation things, financial reward things to the business partners in China are pretty much common. So depending on which country you are talking about, the ethical norms are widely different. Because as you see here, the laws are different, religious beliefs are different, and community does have their own specific norms. So all of the composition of the ethical norms are different. So point here, when you say international business in other countries, you should not always follow in your home country headquarters ethical. So you can share your happiness, right? Your ethical norms if you do the business in other countries. Still, however, a lot of companies behave things illegally. And why? So that's the problem. So as I told you earlier, so we are educated, right? So we are actually attending, say, ethics class here, McGuire class, and also you will take a lot more business ethics, CSR courses in business field, but you are committing same, say, white crime all the time. Why? Why do you behave, the managers actually behave illegally that way? Then what are the consequences of that illegal behavior? So that's pretty much you need to know about, need to know about. Simply, people intentionally doing the wrong things. What you call a immoral manager or immoral management, just like the Enron crisis. A lot of companies that I introduced at the beginning, those are kind of company that has the immoral management in business. But surprisingly, we see a lot of amoral management or immoral managers who doesn't even have the concept of morality or ethics in business. That's the problems. Simply you didn't know what's wrong for your business, with your business, and you didn't even imagine what are the consequences of your wrong behaviors. So these are the characteristics of so you have to differentiate between what is immoral management, immoral managers, and what is amoral management and amoral manager. Right? Let's have a look at that. What is immoral managers or immorality of the managers? Okay, let's have a look at that. The immoral manager first. So these are the what's the immoral managers? Somebody who does the wrong things intentionally. So that's what we call immoral managers. Very self-centered and self-absorbed managers actually do that, this kind of immoral management. As you see here, somebody who cares only about himself or care only about the organization's profit, success, probably belonging to these immoral managers. Can you imagine any example? Somebody who actively, as you see here, oppose any ideas on the right, fair, or just things in the business. And especially no concern for stakeholders. So pretty much these guys are the bad guys. So bad guys are immoral managers. So ethic course wouldn't help them at all. So that's how the author defined it. So these are some examples of the immoral management. So if you do this one in the job place, in the workplace, you are the immoral managers. Simply, you are the bad managers, unethical managers. So first, stealing a petty cash. You may say, like stealing small money would be okay because your firms are big or global firms, which is not true, right? So you should, as I told you, like should not touch any property of the companies, right? Even, especially if it is a money, so you should not put your hand on that company's money and property. And what's commonly happening in the firm is that you cheat on the expense reports. So you are allowed with some money, certainly, if you are becoming some position of the firms. So that specific amount of monies are allocated to you, so you can use that money. But you should not use that money for your own purpose. And you should make the right report on your expenses of the company's money. So you should not cheat on what you spend with the company's money. So these are pretty much what commonly happen. So when you say immoral management, you may think that these are kind of things that the top managers actually do all the time. But actually, even like a new entrant to the firms, or say low-level managers or mid-level managers are actually committing this kind of immoral management a lot. Lying on time should not be late, right? So, and what is coming into work or hungover? What is this? What? Yeah. We drink a lot, right? So if you go to the company, you have a lot of chance to drink with your boss, colleague, your subordinates, and so on. But when you go to the company next day, you should be fully wake up, right? So no hangover, right? Awaken all the time in the firms. Telling a demeaning joke, what is this? Kind of a very common practice in Korean companies, right? Doing the bad joke to your, say, colleague, female, for instance. Kind of, it can be a harassment, right? So you should not do that. Kind of a joke that devaluing yourself. So again, take office suppliers for your personal use, which is not wrongdoings, which is also wrongdoing. So know also the unfair treatment to your employees. And rewarding, you should not rewarding employees who display the wrong behavior, and also especially you should not harassing your colleague, subordinate all the time. So immorality or the immoral management are not really something that, as I told you, like the kind of things that the CEO or the top management does. Actually, you may be the person who does the immoral behavior all the time. So these are the examples. So you should, something that you should not do in the firms. Then these are something that you should do in the firms. So these are the characteristics, so kind of the common things that you can see from the moral managers. Always you should have a very high standard in ethics, ethical and right behavior, and also you should have a very high, strong professional standard for your job, and always shows the very strong, high integrity to your job, and embrace the spirit of the law and regulation of the firm. So probably good guys to your intuition, probably the case of the moral managers and your kind of the things that you have to do. So last thing that you should do, concern about, is this one. Whenever you have the judgment between morality or immorality, the point is that you have to be doing something good, not bad, in your workplace. So these are the field or area that you should do the ethical, say, behavior in your workplace. If you are the leader, so then in every company's job, you have to show the way of the ethics of your business. Especially actually when the company or your department sponsor the programs or the organization, you have to justify why your organization or department is sponsoring that organization, right? Not for the illegal benefit, but for the sake of the organization and public interest. So you have to justify in sponsoring the organization and the programs. So yeah, that's pretty much I'm going to talk about today. So let us talk a lot more about, say, business ethic case in other countries on Friday, okay? And so I will give you back the midterm exam on Friday.